All right, welcome back. You're watching Daybreak. I'm Victoria Rubadiri sitting in for Trevor Ombija. My guests are still in studio with me as we look at the dailies. But let's go back to something that was said yesterday in the interview with Azimio presidential candidate Raila Odinga. And he said he's yet again going to concede if he loses the election. Let's listen into what he had to say yesterday on that.
I'm the sportsman between me and him. And I know that asiyokubali kushindwa sio mshindani. So I would easily accept defeat and congratulate the winner.
All right, so that is always a question that goes to every candidate, every election cycle, whether they'll accept defeat should they lose. Protas, what is your initial reaction to Raila's response to that question?
Thank you. I think that is a very good gesture, and we need to hear this from all the candidates. And I believe in the background, what we would want is that we have credible elections, so that when the process is properly conducted, which is one of the things as ICJ Kenya we're pushing for, together with other like-minded civil society organizations and other partners, and even government actors, because in our engagement, we've been pushing for preparedness for the election. We have engaged the judiciary, we have engaged the legislature, we have engaged the executive through the Ministry, Interior, and Office of the DPP. What we would want is that the process leading to the elections is transparent. There is a lot of preparedness. When candidates say that they will accept the election results, then we are all at peace, because we know that whatever everyone is fearing, which we have experienced in the past about having post-election violence, will not be there. On the other hand, apart from saying that, if there is any candidate who loses and feels they are aggrieved, perhaps you're questioning one or two issues in the process or in the results declaration, we have a forum where you can go to express your dissatisfaction, which is the judiciary. And I can tell you for sure, the judiciary, in our engagement with them in the last almost 1 year, they have been preparing. We have partnered with them in some of their trainings. And if any of the candidates bring their grievances, not only these presidential candidates, but at all levels of the elections, I can say that I've seen the judiciary prepare. So we would want people to go to this forum, let the judiciary determine whatever disputes you may have, and then we leave it at that.
As civil society, how would you rate the IEBC's preparedness? Because as much as you've said the judiciary is preparing, will be ready, we want to avoid another Maraga moment, if you will, right? So how would you rate their preparedness thus far?
As a civil society, there are times when we've engaged with IEBC. I know there are also some of our partners, people that we have worked with, who have been engaging them. And from what they tell us is that they have also been preparing. Probably what we would need to hear more from them is what they have done in terms of reassuring Kenyans on their preparedness. I'm happy to note that today there's an engagement with some of the IEBCs engaging some of the parties who are involved in the elections. And I would want, probably, if they could engage all stakeholders and maybe even make it a point to give regular updates on what they're doing, because sometimes that lack of communication makes people now start wondering and questioning. But from what we hear is that they have been preparing, but we need to hear from them what they have done. Possibly they can share as much as they can to reassure Kenyans that this is what you have prepared.
Honorable Boss, your rating of the IEBC so far, of course, we know your presidential candidate will be one of the 4 meeting IEBC today with demands to the electoral body on what they need to have done before August 9th.
Okay, before I go to that, I just want to comment on the earlier question, which is what Raila Odinga said. He's quoted as saying that I will easily accept defeat, I am the better sportsman, and that asiyokubali kushindwa siyo mshindani. Says the man who has never accepted any single announcement by the Electoral Commission in the 4 times he has run. Says the man who has never accepted defeat.
So you don't buy it?
I don't buy it. I don't buy it. And because I know my team is going to win and William Ruto is going to win the presidency, I am personally, together with other people, preparing for his election petition. Because he's going to do it. History, he never changes. Remember, also, the person sitting next to him, Martha Karua, in 2007, the only election that Raila Odinga won, she was there, refusing to accept that Kibaki had been defeated, and went to great lengths, says again, the team player of the person who never accepts defeat. So I would like you to keep that clip, because we want to be able to play it every single day until we hear him accept defeat, because history tells us, even during the same interview, you can play the clip where he said he went on to still dispute the decision of the Supreme Court after the second election. An election that he refused, after getting the ruling from the Supreme Court, for him to go back. What did he do? He told his people and his supporters to boycott the election. He told them to attack in Nyanza. The IEBC officials who are taking ballot papers to the polling stations were attacked. This is on record. These are facts. So if he can still sit on national television as a presidential candidate, still disputing an election that was confirmed by no less than the Supreme Court of Kenya, are you telling me he accepts defeat? He can't get over himself.
So it is his constitutional right to take it to the Supreme Court.
He took it to the, I said he took it to the Supreme Court,
and he can if he wants to.
But a statesman, once the Supreme Court pronounces itself, if you're somebody who believes in democracy, you accept the decision of the court, even if you don't agree with it. That is what someone who believes in the rule of law does. On the preparedness of IEBC, IEBC is prepared considering they've worked under very difficult challenges. Remember, they were newly constituted recently and have had a lot of challenges. From civil society, you know very well that you have always supported IEBC. When I was at IIEC, we had a basket fund where civil society gave us support in voter education, gave us support in training of our officers, and even training of the judiciary, the judges who will hear the election petitions. And so civil society has been very instrumental, together with our development partners, in supporting to undertake the soft part, not the hardware part, but the soft part of the tasks that need to be undertaken in the electoral process. Unfortunately, this year, which our friend chairman here is not telling us, is that that support was no longer allowed. They did not have a basket fund, and in fact, they've been told any support, all development partners have been told that any support you want to provide to the Electoral Commission, you should provide it through the Ministry of Interior. True or false? IFES was told that, and we have letters to that effect. So this time we have IEBC that is not supported. The government has said we have resources, but there is no time in any of our elections that it has 100% been funded by government. We don't allow, let's say, the KIMS kits, anything to do with the register, the printing of the ballot papers to be supported by development partners of the civil society. But training, voter education, support to political parties, and so on, is normally done by civil society. So you can see, why is the government so interested in getting involved? And since when did the Ministry of Interior get involved in election preparations? It has never happened in the history of Kenya. Even the establishment of the multi-sectoral task force, headed by the Chief Justice, but controlled by Matiangi's office, which IEBC pulled out of, rightly so, is illegal, because Under the Judicial Service Act, there is a body established called the National Council for Administration of Justice. Civil society sits in it also. And they have there everybody involved in the justice chain. So whenever there is a big event like elections, then they co-opt any other person involved in elections. It's chaired by the Chief Justice. And you have there the DPP, you have various ministries that are involved, and so on. And that is the body established under the law. Okay. The multi-sectoral one is not. So we have a IEBC that is working under very difficult circumstances. I'm glad that there is a meeting today, which is normally normal, that you have meetings with the political party leaders in order to tell them about your preparedness and IEBC about their challenges and so on. Yeah. And I'm glad that's happening. Even the issue, I've seen issues that have been raised, you know, that the ballot paper designs should be known, the company that's been contracted. Right. And remember, even a political party is allowed to send their agents to the printing plant to inspect the printing and to even have the packing list availed to them. And to be able to know where the warehouse that the ballots will be first delivered in Nairobi is, and you're allowed to send your agents at the time of dispatch to the various counties of the ballot papers, and to even follow those ballot papers up to the sub-county levels. So this will be a good meeting. I intend to attend it as part of my party team, and this will be a good opportunity so that if IEBC has any challenges, and able to help. I hope the civil society will also send representatives, because it's important for them to also know what interventions they can have, because it's our business to ensure that IEBC is able to.
So let me bring Herman in here, because, and just to get your reactions to what Raila had said, but even to rate the IEBC, you know, you've just heard Honorable Boss talk about this multi-sectoral team that is hampering the work of the IEBC. Do you also hold that same view?
IEBC pulled out.
Before I get there, you know, when I was sitting here for a long time silent, and you know, the only time I talked about Kenya being in a terrible situation, and we have to get out of that situation. And I mentioned that we cannot do so by blame, by excuses, and you asked Gladys to respond to what Raila calls populism, by false, you know, false facts. For example, Uganda does not have cheaper fuel than Kenya, does not have cheaper maize meal unga than Kenya. The populism that Raila is talking about in terms of leaders even saying that price of essential commodities is up because of the handshake, because of baby. That's the populism he's talking about. This country has serious challenges, Victoria, very serious challenges. IEBC will do its best to work, as Gladys says, in very difficult circumstances. 2 years ago, I raised the issue of this preparedness. I threw it in public space to make it even more dramatic, so that people could react. I said, let's postpone the elections, you know, just to make it real, so people could see what I meant about the state of preparedness. People really attacked me. But now they can see what I had in mind. Some of the challenges IEBC is facing today, if we had been open to listening and looking at those things, some of the things we would have done something about. You know why people didn't want to listen? Especially one side. At that time, there was only one side that was going for the presidency. Raila hadn't even declared. He was a prisoner of BBI then. It looked like the goal was empty. There was no goalkeeper. And you couldn't give somebody a pass. Why don't you score yourself? It was like the State House was very open. But because people thought that they were going to be occupants of State House very easily, they didn't want to listen to the challenges. Today, they are facing the challenges. So the country has challenges both on the economic front. The country has challenges in terms of preparedness of IEBC, but I think leaders in this country will have to work with IEBC, assist IEBC, identify some of the challenges. I like the approach Raila is using, where if you see there's a challenge, you don't just shout, you put it down and say, this to us must be addressed. And by the way, when Gladys says Raila didn't follow what the Supreme Court says, that's not true. The Supreme Court did nullify the election, and Raila said, fine, according to the Constitution, we are going for another election. But there were issues identified by the Supreme Court. What have you done about those issues for us to go for another election? When all the issues identified as having compromised the election are still intact, when the officers who messed the election are still in office, how then can we go into another election? It will be useless. And that boycott was based on the fact that IEBC did not respond. Finally, I always get a little amused. I don't want to get annoyed, I just get amused when people say Raila cannot concede defeat, and he has said he can concede defeat.
He has never conceded.
What has been the case? And Gladys sitting next to me has said Raila won the election. I think I heard that. Did you hear that?
2007.
You said, you hear? So now, if from you are saying Raila won the election, how did you expect him to accept the verdict of an election? He actually won, according to you and according to many people, because you are right. In 2017, none other than the Supreme Court did say the election was not fair. So how would you want Raila to behave? To accept the elections that were not free and fair? In 2013, he lost. What he did, he went to court, like this gentleman says. As you said, you have a constitutional right as a candidate. Yeah. If you are not satisfied, you go to court. He went to court.
Just please.
The election was not nullified.
Just allow Herman to.
The election was not nullified in 2013, despite the things we all saw. The two of you are lawyers, I think. But that's it. He left it like that. In 2017, he went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court nullified the election. So which election is this that you are saying Raila has not accepted? Which one? Okay. Which laws? Which of these?
Yeah, just allow me, and I'll ask for your permission, because it's good to set the record straight.
Which one?
In 2007, Raila Odinga did not go to court. Instead, he agreed to be given the position of Prime Minister for him to step down. That's what he did. He didn't challenge the election in 2007. That is the one election, if Raila had challenged, he had a lot of evidence in favor of. And I'm being honest about this. If I was dishonest, I would not accept that. I was part of the team that went in after the Kivuitu team was disbanded. We went in. We saw the documents. We saw that it showed that the president walked into office. I mean, people went to the polling station, voted for the president and left and didn't vote for anyone else. Where did the other ballot papers go? So, of course, that is something I analyzed. I did it as a job. So, in that one, he did not. In 2017, the results were nullified by the Supreme Court. Right. And we accept that. We went back to the election because we are law-abiding citizens. Once we went back to the elections, what Raila Odinga should have done is mobilized his supporters and gone back to the second election. Maybe he would have won. But he didn't.
With the same infrastructure in place?
But instead, as a person who
with the same infrastructure in place?
That being the person that he is, that he does not respect the rule of law, he instead decided to take the law into his hands and send people to go and attack IEBC officials.
I think you are contradicting yourself.
Yes, IEBC officials were attacked in 2017. You didn't go to the second election. He called for a boycott. His people did not vote. That's why he hardly had any votes. So once he refused to once he boycotted, he can't expect the country to wait on hold and not follow the law. The country had to go on. In 2017, they won. In we have to go to the... And after, in 2017, he did not even accept the result.
Okay.
Because he actually went and swore himself as president and committed treason.
We need to move on beyond this, because there's also a very important point raised by Herman in terms of the Supreme